What's going on, everybody? Another episode of Shooting It Straight with myself, Justin Jackson. Uh, the regular, me and producer John. But today, obviously, we don't have a ton of UNC basketball other than some games coming up. So today, we figure we bring in the only other 2-4 that I can think of at UNC, other than Marvin Williams, Kenny Williams. Kenny, appreciate you coming and hanging out with us for a little bit, chatting it up.
Appreciate you
Uh,
having me, brother.
I guess for
Honored to be the first guest.
for sure. Come on now, whenever we were talking about guests, you know what name came to mind. So I guess for those that maybe haven't really been able to either follow you since UNC or whatever, kind of update everybody on where you're at, how's it going, and how life is, man.
Yeah, I'm in my third year over here in Greece, third team. Um, Things are going well. The team, we haven't played as well as we want to, haven't stacked as many wins as we want to, but individually, I think I'm playing pretty good. Of course, could play better, but it's a long season, man. It's only December, so we got a lot of time to turn things around. Um, But yeah, that's about it, man. It's my third year over here. I'm kind of getting acquainted to things and the traditions of Greek life and things like that. So uh, it's fun, man. It's a lot of fun. Things are going well this year with the team. Outside of basketball, I got a lot of great teammates, a couple good Americans. So I'm enjoying it. Just trying to take it in day by day, honestly.
Man, look, I think people a lot of times we take for granted um, the sacrifice that's involved going overseas. Because I think a lot of people just look at, okay, you're playing basketball as a job, like that's a blessing in of itself, which it is. Not taking that away at all, but like you said, third year in Greece, those seasons go on for what, 10 months?
Hmm.
You got to be over there by yourself. Luckily, like you said, you got some teammates that are cool. You can hang out with a little bit, spend some time. But I mean, right now, it's what, 8 hours ahead from Central Time, 7 hours ahead from Eastern Time. So I can only imagine, man, the things that you have to do to still kind of keep life over here in the States normal and things like that. So we appreciate you, bro. I guess the first thing is, man, like, and we've talked about it, obviously. We talk all the time, but what what would you say is the biggest difference from European basketball to basketball over in the States? What would you say is the biggest difference?
Um, I think honestly, the tactical side of it, it's so much more tactical when it comes to playing over here because most of the time you have 2 or 3 days to get ready for a team. Um, I'm talking strictly professional on over here on this levels compared to the NBA. It's like you might have a back to back, and you can only prepare for that team the night before or the day of. So usually we have 2 or 3 days to prepare, and my team specifically will spend one whole day on their defense, and then the next day on their offense, and put it all together on the third day. But it's so much more tactical, man. It's just uh, it's a lot of teams run a lot of plays, and they're very not necessarily intricate, but the players are so much more. There's so much more skill involved in it that some actions are just tough to guard, and then you got some teams who are uh, they some of the coaches over here, some of the stuff that they draw up is just it's just good stuff, and there's so much that you can do out of the different actions that they run that sometimes it's just hard to guard. So it's just everybody runs it like that where the tactical part of it is very important, especially here in Greece. I mean, every league, every country is different, but here in Greece, it's the tactical side is way bigger than I think the NBA, where you guys kind of a lot of guys can get by on talent and skill alone, but here you have to really hone in on what you want to do and what you're defending.
Yeah, which I think is something we talked about. I think last episode when UNC played UConn. Um, it's almost it's rare to see now here in the States, whether it's college or pros. Like you said, NBA, it's literally the best, you know, if you want to say the best, we'll say 300, 400
Mm-hmm.
players in the world. So it's like you don't necessarily have to run the best actions because a guy like LeBron or a guy like KD at the end of shot clock can just go get a shot whenever they want.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but like when we were watching and we were talking about UConn, like the things that they run, like Coach Hurley runs with them, it's so rare to see actions and execution and different looks that they gave. And I feel like that's kind of something that's missing in like today's basketball is because everybody growing up is usually like the top of the top is more athletic, maybe they're more talented. It's almost like we forget to teach how to execute.
Mm-hmm.
We forget to teach like how to think the game. We forget to teach like the IQ portion of basketball. And so it's like then whenever they get to a point where okay, wait, now so you're telling me I can't just run by this guy and go score a bucket? Like I actually have to set a back
Right.
screen, wait to get screened, come off, read whatever the low man is doing.
Yeah.
Like there's so many things that we just don't teach, I feel like. And when I watch your games or I watch any other like European basketball, it's like it's refreshing to see that
Mm-hmm.
because it's like, man, like you actually have to read and play basketball. You can't just jump over somebody or you can't just hit them with four different combo moves and blow past them. Like because there's just different things that you have to deal with over there. So I do. I guess my question to you is: do you feel like over here in the States we're doing a disservice maybe not teaching European style basketball because it's all different
Mm-hmm.
style of basketball. But do you feel like we're missing that portion, or do you feel like it's just because of the talent and the athleticism that players over here have that that's just kind of where basketball is going and that's just kind of where it is?
I think I think the and I don't want to say sound like I'm bashing anybody because I'm not in the youth AAU culture things like that anymore. But I think that's where it starts. Um, Over here, growing up, they're teaching them how to make reads and how to really play the game, quote unquote, the right way. So by the time they're 25, they've been making these reads for 10 years or so. So it's like it's second nature to them, as opposed to nowadays in the states, it's I don't want to sound like one of those guys, but it's really highlight culture. Everybody
Hmm.
everybody wants the videos to post on social media and things like that, and I think that's the difference. And you can kind of call it a disservice because, like you said, not everybody's going to go to the NBA. So, guys come over here or go to college and, you kind of have to learn how to play the game. You have to learn principles of the game as opposed to, just getting by on instinct. And it's good to have instinct, but there's a part of the game a big part of the game that's mental, and you have to be able to make a read and sometimes see a play before it happens, or as it happens. And I think that's the part that we're missing in the states is just being able to read the game on both ends of the court, though. Like defensive principles and simple things like just the simple parts of the game that players should have. You shouldn't have to be learning that at 18, 19, 20 years old when you're in college or trying to be a pro. Um, and I think that's why you see so many American guys come over here and not succeed as well as they would or as well as you think they would because that mental part of the game I think is lacking in our when we're teaching kids how to play. I think that's the difference. They're teaching them how to make reads and to where it's secondhand. It's like they know what to do like the back of their hand, and then you can build on that. But I think the foundational pieces, I think we have to do a better job in America of, putting giving kids that foundation and then building on it as they get older, get better, get more athletic and things like that.
You're listening to Shooting It Straight with Justin Jackson. Special guest episode with Kenny Williams here today. We're sponsored by Johnny T-shirt and by Congruity HR, where Tar Heel fans can get a free payroll and HR needs assessment. I had a question for you, Kenny, and honestly, Justin, you can probably take this one as well. But you have played in both the G League and over in Europe. You started out with the Austin Spurs, and then
Mhm.
you made the move over to Europe. How did you decide to take a opportunity in Europe versus staying in the G League? And maybe Justin, same thing for you. Why have you never pursued an opportunity in Europe? Because I'm sure there have been times where that could have been on the table for you.
Well, for me, I always told myself coming out of college that I didn't want to do G League for too long. Um, the pandemic kind of threw everything off, but I always said 2 years max, and then I would look at my options overseas. Um, but I'll be honest with you, man. I didn't know anything about overseas basketball when I got to Carolina until I started hearing about guys' experiences, Carolina guys, and how it's not as bad as you think it is growing up. Um, so you kind of lighten up to the idea, and I just wanted to try. I just wanted to see what the G League life was like, and a part of me wasn't ready to come over here yet. That's a big part of it, and like Justin said earlier, there's a sacrifice to it that I just mentally I don't think I was ready for it yet. Um, but when it came to you know the decision, uh, I didn't sign until I think late July, my first year, and that's because I got that through one of my Austin Spurs assistant coaches knew someone over here, so I was able to make that move, and it's gotten better ever since. But uh, I think there's a growing up, everybody, especially in America, everybody thinks you want to go to the NBA, and there's a certain stigma around overseas basketball, but this it's great basketball over here. Guys make really good money over here. It's a sacrifice, but you get. I was actually just talking to Marcus about this. You get to get a new perspective on the world. There's so much positive that can come out of coming over here because you're thrust into a new culture, a new environment that you're not used to, and you got to figure it out. And there's a lot of growth that can come with that. Uh, but it opens your eyes so much outside of the world, outside of America, and I think that's a good thing. It's been a good thing for me, but I don't think on that side of things, I don't think I've heard anybody say anything bad about it.
Yeah, I mean, I to answer your question, John, I think there definitely have been, especially in the last couple of years, there's been more talks of do me and my family make that move overseas and try to, play some basketball over there to maybe make it back to the NBA or, play a couple years over there. Um, you know, like Kenny said, I think now the way that basketball is working, there's opportunities everywhere. And the opportunities now overseas are so much better than I think how it was like as we were growing up. I think when you thought of going overseas, I know at least for me, when you thought of going overseas, it was almost like I'd say like a demotion type of thing. Like, oh, you weren't good enough to make it over here, so I guess you got to go try it overseas. Now it's like there's NBA talent and really high level talent all throughout European basketball, and so I think that's one good thing about over there. For me personally, it was just I've got two little ones now, and a lot of people go and say, "Oh, well, that's the perfect time to go because they're not going to remember it," or, that's the perfect time because, you know, they're little. For me, it's almost it's like the what's the sacrifice level that I really want to do. Like I said, this is my seventh year professional. Thankfully, I've been blessed enough to earn and provide enough money for my family that money isn't necessarily the, end all be all type situation for us. So for me, it was like, okay, what is the sacrifice that I'm willing to do? Am I willing to take my family over there for 10 months and keep them away from my family and my wife's family and the cousins and my brother and sisters and all that kind of thing? Am I willing to do that, or do I want to try another year in the G League and see if I can make something happen, as far as that? And for me, it was just, for me, family always comes first anyway. So it just wasn't a sacrifice that I was willing to make. I know a lot of people would say, "Hey, Justin, you need to play basketball as long as you possibly can," whatever that might look like. For me, that's not what it is. Life is so much bigger than basketball. But at the same time, I love how much European basketball is expanding, and it's giving so many people opportunities to, one, play basketball, and for two, make a good amount of money. Like Kenny said, I mean, you can go overseas now and make a lot of money. And so I think that's a good, I think that's a good place that, European basketball is giving. So that's a long answer to a short answer that I could have given. Was it just wasn't a sacrifice that I was willing to make with my family, but at the same time, I support everybody that goes over there and, tries to make something happen over there.
Yeah, we appreciate the long answers from both of you. Another question about sort of playing in Europe or really just playing in the G or the NBA. There, you sort of get to experience the Carolina family a little bit.
Mm.
Kenny, you referenced it. There's been a lot of Tar Heel basketball players who've gone overseas. I think Deion Thompson played like something crazy, like
Yeah.
16 seasons overseas, which is awesome. So Kenny, can you tell me about, and maybe you haven't experienced this, but have you gotten a chance to interact with any fellow Tar Heels either on the court or maybe just broadly in Europe in the G? Like kind of what's it like to compete against a fellow Tar Heel in professional basketball?
Um, Man, it's really nothing like it. So last year, I actually did play Dion, um, in a 3-game series. We played a 3-game series against his team, and me and Dion, we actually developed a relationship last year through someone else. There was a program that he was running, that he was in, that he reached out to me about, and we got to have some good conversations throughout the year. And we ended up playing each other last year, um, and it's just it's hard to put a word to it. It's just a cool feeling to um, play against someone that you view as a brother, and also someone that you build a relationship because you have a school, a alma mater in common, and you've been able to build that relationship, and then to go and compete against them, it's second to none. It's just when you compete against somebody that you're close with, you compete a little bit harder because you want the bragging rights. You want to be able to say, "Yeah, I beat you." So it's just cool, man, to have someone that played, uh, you know, 5, 6, 7 years before me at Carolina, to be able to build a relationship with them, and then to go out and compete with them and have paths cross. Them still playing at a high level, at an older age, and just crossing paths and being able to compete with them, I think is cool. But in terms of the Carolina family, I had a game in Spain last year also, and Luke, he wanted to make the game, but their practice went a little bit longer, but he still drove, I think, an hour or so, just to spend time with me, and we went to eat after the game, things like that. So, it's just special. Everybody, you know how we talk about the Carolina family, man. It's a special thing to be a part of, and I'm just thankful that I'm able to have people around the world that I can call brothers and know that I have that support.
Yeah, and I mean, it is people always they throw around the brotherhood and the family term a lot. Um, but it is weird, just like I'll never forget the first time I played against Charlotte, and I think it was Marv's last year, and I had never met Marv up until that point. Um, and it was like it was layup lines, and I was running back into like the rebounding layup lines, and he was there, and like it was like it was as if we had been around each other and had a previous relationship just purely off of the fact that we went to UNC. Like there was no like, hey, how's the family doing or whatever. It was just like, hey, bro, how are you doing? Like, you know what I mean? It's a weird thing to really talk about, but that's just how being in North Carolina and the sense of family that you have, going all the way back to years prior to you and even further back. So it is a cool thing, which is kind of I guess we might as well talk about this team, this year's team a little bit, within this podcast a little bit. So I think it's one of those things, Kenny. We've obviously you go back to Chapel Hill during the summers. You work out there, so you were there a little bit this past off season. I was there like a couple days. I was able to practice with them a little bit. But I want to kind of hear what your thoughts are on this year's team and the games that you've seen, how you saw them, throughout the off season and things like that. What do you think of this team and how they can be going forward?
The one thing that I love most right now about this team is they have shown a lot more grit. And there's been a fight where you get knocked down and you're not just gonna stay. They're going to fight back. And that kind of showed. I kind of saw that coming in the summer. Again, I was talking to Marcus again about the summer practices, and they were wars. They were all out wars, super physical, and things like that. So it's no surprise that they're showing more grit and more fight and more. They're competing a lot more. But I mean, I love the team. I love the makeup of the team. Um, of course, you got things like UConn. The shots weren't falling the way that we wanted them to, but they've got plenty of shooters. I think the makeup is just good because you got guys like Elliott that can help RJ when RJ isn't on the ball, and then you got Elliott because Elliott looks for everybody. He wants to pass the ball. He wants the assist. So that makes everybody's life easier. RJ's playing out of his mind right now. Hopefully he can continue that up. And then you got Cormac, shooter, tough, gritty, defense, all of that good stuff. And then I think the key is Harrison, really. Harrison is the one that kind of takes this team to another level. Because he's been consistent. He kind of, when things go awry, you just give the ball to Harrison on the post, and he's shown an ability to not only look to score out of the post, but he can pass out of the post. Like he's made a couple cross-court passes where it just hits the shooters on the money, and all they got to do is shoot the ball. So I think he's the X factor and can take this team, take them from here to here. But and I really like his game, man. He's tough. He can make shots. He can do a lot on both ends of the floor. And of course, Armando is going to be Armando. He's going to do what he does. But the key also will be the bench. You got guys like Seth, who's been playing well. Who else? Jay Witt can come in and give you minutes and be aggressive on defense and offense. I think he has the ability to do it. And all those guys, I mean, I think they can put it together. The makeup of the team is, I think is made with the ability to have success. I think they just have to continue to put things together and continue to improve. I think this next stretch of you got Kentucky, Oklahoma. I think the rest of this month, and one more game. I think the rest of this month, but December is really where you fine tune things to get ready for conference play because you have a lot more practice. So hopefully they have been using the time that they have. I know they've got exams and you don't practice as much, but hopefully they're using the time to fine tune and get themselves ready for the home stretch.
Kenny was sitting back. We started to talk about this year's team. He sat up. I could tell Kenny has some takes ready to go. He's ready to fire them off.
He's been ready to say something.
I'm going to ask you one tough question, Kenny. I want to hear your best take here. Justin and I have been talking about this on the show throughout the season because Justin's been really big on Harrison. He's called him the X Factor. But who do you think the best player on the team is? Some people say it's Armando because he's most consistent. Some people say it's RJ because he can just put the ball in the basket, or Harrison for the two-way. Kenny, what's your take there?
If I had to pick one, it would be between Harrison and RJ. I think I want to go RJ, and not just because because of how he's been playing. I think RJ's the engine. I think that drives his team because he doesn't necessarily have to score. I mean, that's what he does. But we've seen games where RJ's had 10 rebounds, and we've seen games where RJ's had 10 assists. And, of course, we've seen the 25, 30-point games. But I think RJ I think it all starts with RJ. Whatever they do, it starts with RJ, whether he's scoring or getting guys involved in the game. I think if he isn't playing well, I think it'd be tougher for the team. So I'm gonna go RJ there, and of course it's not hard to pick him with the way he's been playing. So I think that's a pretty solid choice. I don't think there's a wrong answer, but I'm leaning RJ there.
Yeah, I think kind of what I was talking about before. I think I, I've stood on it from the very beginning of the season that RJ and Mondo are kind of what make this team. They're kind of the top dogs per se. But I think as this season has gone on, I think I would agree as far as RJ is, I guess if you want to say best player, but Harrison makes the team go, if that makes
Mm.
sense. So if RJ struggles in a game, um, I think this team looks a lot worse. But if Harrison doesn't do everything that he does for this team, I think a lot of the guys, RJ included, Mondo, Cormac, I think a lot of the guys don't do as well as they do. And so I think he's kind of what keeps this team going, I guess I would say,
Mm.
which I mean it's tough. I think I saw a stat that RJ's averaging like 21 points a game, and there's been no other Tar Heel to do that since Tyler Hansborough. And it's early, but I mean, still to be putting up those kind of numbers, it's hard to say that he's not, kind of the go-to guy on the team. But man, the things that Harrison does is just,
Yeah.
it's like we haven't really seen a guy. Honestly, when I really think about it, we haven't seen a guy do everything that he does since probably Theo on our
Yeah.
teams. Like, it, you know what I mean? Like, especially, his senior year, I guess it would have been your junior year, the way that he basically ran the whole entire team and
Mm-hmm.
did so many things for the team is kind of how Harrison reminds me for this team. Is just like he keeps this train going, and he's honestly, I'd probably say he's probably the most consistent player so far this season as far as just game in and game out. He does what he does and he does it really well. So I definitely agree, man. Go and hop on the Harrison Ingram uh, fan train if you want to, because I've been on it for a while. So, um, but I think that kind of that I think it's funny when we talk about this team. It's, obviously now everybody's acquainted with what this team looks like, but you think about it, last year there was six of these guys that weren't on the team
Mm-hmm.
and nobody knew about them, which is all from the transfer portal. And I think I saw some other stat that, a couple weeks ago, it was like, I don't know if it was football, just football, or if it was a mix of basketball and football, but there was like 3,000 players in the transfer portal already. Um, and so I guess when you see the transfer portal, do you think, for one, do you think it's a good thing? Two, do you think it would have changed your career at all if it was as open and free as it is right now today?
Uh, man, I want to say it's a good thing, um, but there's everything has positives and negatives to it. Um, the first thing that I think about is, there's X number of kids who go into the transfer portal that don't end up finding a school, and that's a tough part of it. But you've also got transfer portal success stories, even for Carolina, where the it worked out for both the player and the school. So I mean, I think there's more positive than negative to it, because it gives the players a little bit more power in terms of their career. Um, do I think there needs to be some kind of regulation to it? Yes, but so that you don't have as many players that don't find homes. But overall, I think it's a good system, because you've got everybody that you've got one central location where players want to, coaches can look, and you got a bunch of players where that are looking for new places to play. Um, but it can get abused. It can be abused, but overall, I think it's a good thing. In terms of me, uh, finding, seeing, in terms of it being something that would have changed my career, I don't think so. Um, Me personally, there was only like a single moment where I was thinking about transferring, um, but I never really gave it any real thought. But other than that, would it have you been used a little bit more by Coach Williams? I have no idea. So I don't think it would have impacted my career a ton. Um, Obviously, towards the back end of my career, it helped us get Cam, which he turned out to be. Everybody knows how he turned out for us. So um, he helped in a lot of wins. So I don't know, man. It's tough. It's tough to say, but I think overall it's a good thing for college basketball. It's just, I think there needs to be some regulation to it. I don't know what that looks like, but um, I think that would help it a little bit in terms of players, getting into the transfer portal, and making the decisions to leave their schools and find the new ones.
Just to hold on this point for a quick second, kind of taking quote unquote the voice of the fan here. I think fans really appreciate seeing the journey of players over 4 years at UNC. And I think, Kenny, that's so much of your story too. I remember that game against Pitt in the conference tournament when you hit the 3-pointer,
Mhm.
and that felt like such a big moment for your career. And it feels like moments like that maybe aren't happening as much with the transfer portal, because players will stay to school for a year or two. Maybe fans don't get the chance to build relationships with the players as much. And those moments, like Kenny hitting a three early on in his career, it means that he's going to play a bigger and bigger role in his following seasons.
Mhm.
So Kenny, kind of from that perspective, do you kind of see the challenges maybe that the transfer portal maybe prevents the next Kenny Williams from developing over the course of 4 years at a single school?
Yeah, I mean, I think it does. Because sometimes you get in situations where you have to wait it out, and uh, you do have to develop. And eventually things start working in your favor. I just think that's how the sport is nowadays, where guys kind of want to go somewhere and play right away. I mean, I came in as a freshman, and we were ranked number 1 preseason. So you got guys like Justin, Marcus, Theo, Nate, Joel. There wasn't much playing time to go around, and I knew that. Um, but it's I think that's just the new age of college basketball, man, where guys want to go somewhere and play because they see so many guys, that are in the same class that are playing, and then a guy gets in his head like, "Oh, I'm better than him. I should be playing," things like that. Um, but I think the age where you see a guy start young and see him progress throughout his career, that'll probably be few and far between now because of the transfer portal. Um, so it's just something that you don't necessarily like, because you think about a place like Carolina where that happens so much, and it's kind of part of the culture, to see guys and watch them progress through their careers. But it's just something that we have to get used to as fans. Me now, being a fan, is something that it's just how it is now. It's unfortunate because that's part of the allure of college basketball, is seeing falling in love with someone throughout their career, and then when they leave, to be that be the hard part. But it's just how it is nowadays, and you just got to get used to the change. Things are changing in college sports, and some things you just have to you gotta change with the times, I guess.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's got to be some sort of regulations, that way that kids aren't just going into the transfer portal and leaving without a home to go to, because I think that causes more issues than that person maybe just not playing and trying to push through at the college that they're at. But I mean, I think it's just it's a tough thing. It's definitely a tough balance, because if I think nowadays you see a lot of people moving schools and high schools. You see a lot of players, they transfer to a new school, they go to a boarding school. You see obviously the Mount Verds and all this kind of stuff. And, I think those options are obviously great options for a lot of basketball players. But I think there has to be some sort of resiliency, I guess I would say. And there has to be at times patience, because once you leave even college, there's you can't just pick up and leave wherever you want to go, because the situation isn't necessarily how you pictured it and how you really wanted it to go. Um, so I'm kind of right there in the middle. I think there should be a sense of okay, no, I'm gonna stick with my decision and I'm gonna push through and I'm gonna go and earn what I deserve. But also at the same time, there are people that go into unfortunate circumstances, and a coach gets fired or somebody transfers in front of you, maybe that was a little bit more accomplished player or whatever, and so then it's like, okay, well, I need to go do something for myself, and I need to try to continue my career, which is kind of what it's kind of what this game coming up against Kentucky is. When you look at UNC, it's we talk about the Cormacs, the Packs, the Jay Witt, Harrison, guys like that transferred in, and then you look at the Kentucky team, and it's basically all freshmen. It's like it's all freshmen and a fifth year guy that's been at Kentucky for a minute now. Um, and so you kind of look at, and it was honestly, we could talk about our games, in a second, but it was the same way whenever we played Kentucky. It was like, okay, I was a junior,
Hmm.
Theo, Joel were juniors, Kennedy, Nate were seniors, and then you look across the line and Fox is a freshman, Bam's a freshman, Monk's a freshman. It's like it's literally the old heads versus
Yeah.
the new age. And so I think I think going into we'll talk about their game a little bit. Going into this game on Saturday, it's I don't know how much of Kentucky that you've been able to watch, but um, what are you looking forward to seeing this UNC team go against a team like Kentucky, and kind of what are you looking for them to do to kind of, keep this season going in the right direction?
I haven't watched any Kentucky. If honestly, I watch North Carolina unless it's a weekend and there are earlier games. I really just watch North Carolina. But I just want them to. Uh, I want them to impose their will. One time they kind of did it against Tennessee in the first half, and you kind of saw that they had a bunch of open shots. They hit the shots. Armando was aggressive. Armando was physical. Um, but you got a young team, and I know Kentucky's really young. They got talented players, so they're not just going to back down. But I want to see them jump out early and kind of jump on them a little bit. Um, just to give themselves the confidence. Coming off of UConn, you hope they start with a little more fire coming off of a loss, and they've had a bunch of extra time to get ready for Kentucky. So I want to see them come out the gate with a little more fire, and not have to go to the full court press to get everybody going, get the juices flowing. I want to see them, come out with that energy, that effort that you would expect from a team coming off of a loss and going into another big game. Because these are the games that you want to stack going into March and going into the NCAA tournament. These are the games that are big for you, that build your resume. So, you want to come out, and especially on the neutral court, you kind of want to really come out and get whatever fans you have, because North Carolina fans travel well. So you want to get them going, and just build your energy as early as possible. So I think that's what I'll be looking for, and what I hope to see coming off of UConn, and having to sit on that for a couple weeks.
This is a question for both of you. There's a long rivalry between North Carolina and Kentucky. You guys have both participated in it. Some famous games. Obviously, the Luke Maye shot is probably the first one that comes to mind. But both of you got the chance to play against Kentucky a few different times. I'll start with you, Justin, then we'll go to Kenny. What's your favorite memory of the UNC Kentucky rivalry, having participated in it?
We'll keep, because you mentioned the shot against that Luke hit. We'll keep that one to the side because that's in a class of its own. I think, and I got a lot of them that I could go off of, but I think the one memory that's most memorable for me is, we were talking about kind of before we did this pod. Um, my freshman year, it was my first away game ever, and it was in Rupp Arena. It was against, at the time, it was against the platoon system Kentucky team, which went undefeated all the way until tournament time. And like I said, it's my freshman year. It's my first away game. And I will never forget my first shot that I shot from the top of the key. We ran a play. I shot it from the top of the key. And when I tell you, it hit the backboard so hard that it like almost shook my mental a little bit from how hard it hit the backboard. And I was looking at the box score. I only played 18 minutes, which obviously Coach Williams made a great decision on that. But um, that, I think, is the most memorable play that I will never forget, just because it was, as a freshman. For one, you grow up and there's certain places that you always hear about, you always see, right? It's the Dean Dome, it's Kansas, it's Kentucky, it's Indiana. Like, there's certain places that you see and you're like, man, like I want to play there at some point. And I got my chance to play there, but it was my first away game ever. So, and it was against a team of that level, and it was. There hasn't been many games where I've been really shook up a little bit, and I think I can admit it now as a older, more mature adult male, that I was definitely shook up a little bit. about, going into that game. So I think that's my most memorable moment when it comes to that game.
Yeah, I think for me, taking away Luke's shot, I think that Elite Eight game, um, but more so how we had guys respond uh, based off of the game that happened earlier that year. Um, the 103 to 100 game, everybody knows Malik had 47. Um, but just you could tell, you knew that team was really special. That 17 team, when with the way that guys responded, it wasn't necessarily, um, like we had to say anything. You just kind of knew that we would have guys step up, and you had. I'm looking at it now. Malik had 12 on 4 for 10, 3 for 6, but two of those threes were at the end of the game, kind of desperation threes. And then Fox had 13 points on 5 for 14. So, Justin and Theo kind of took those matchups, took them personally. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, was that the game you told Theo that you had Malik, or you were going to guard Malik?
I think so. I think it was yeah, because I think the matchup originally was supposed to be Theo on him,
Mhm.
and then I think Joel was just going to guard
Yeah.
Fox, but Joel was dealing with like ankle injuries that whole tournament. So then we were just like, you know what, we're just going to do that, and let me get, because I mean, and shout out to obviously both of them. They're both balling out in
Yeah.
Sacramento right now. Um, but it was like, you mentioned the game prior where he had 47. I think you could have put anybody on him at that point, and he would have still kept
And we
scoring.
did.
Like it
We
didn't
did. It was
matter.
like four people.
And so, it was at least three or four people that we tried to put on him, and there was just nothing that we could do. So it was like, okay, going into this game, what are the things that we could do to not let him get to that point? And so it was like, okay, well, just deny him everything. That's the only way you could do it. And so obviously it was easier for me because being a longer, taller, I could just kind of just trace him all over the floor. If he did get the ball, like it's just more length everywhere. And then, it ended up he missed a couple shots and things like that. So yeah, I mean I agree with you, man. It was I mean that was I mean I think that game goes down whether Luke hits that shot or not. I think that game goes down as one of the better tournament games in the last, 10 to 15 years
Yeah.
just from one the talent that was in the game, the back and forth that was involved in the game, and just the level of basketball that was being played. I think it was I mean it's one of the best games, obviously that I was a part of, but that I think people watched
Yeah.
in a long time. So
And I
I
think I
second.
think that showed what our 17 team was, because none of the games in that tournament were easy besides the first game. Like, it was a fight the whole tournament. So it's like, it's just we did anything we could to not be denied going back to the Final Four and back to the championship. And I think that game kind of shows it, because that's that could have went either way. I mean, everybody watched the game, how it went, and I think that just showed the character of that team, and guys were willing to step up and do what they needed to do uh, to get to that final goal that we had.
North Carolina plays Kentucky on Saturday at 5:30 on CBS, so be sure to check out that game. I got two more questions for you guys real quick. First for you, Justin. You played with De'Aaron Fox, I believe, in the 2017-2018 season on the Kings. Did you mention to him, the game at all in the locker room? Give him a little bit of a hard time about that?
You know what's crazy, man? I played with him in AAU, so I guess that would have been what 3 years prior, 4 years prior. I played with him in high school, and then went to Sacramento, and it was for sure it was a sore subject for Fox, especially the first year. I think once he got past the first year, then it was just, hey, look, we're in the NBA. It is what it is. That was in the past, but it was definitely a sore subject. I mean, I think you saw some of the clips and stuff after that game, and kind of how emotional that side was. Um, which I mean, you lose in that manner against anybody, I think it's going to be tough. But in that kind of game against another blue blood like us, I think it was also rough. So we definitely had our I like to use the word banter. We definitely had our banter back and forth and things like that. That next year, because we definitely had the bragging rights. So yeah, he was a little tore up about it a little bit.
All right, and Kenny, we are looking at the roster here for the 2016-17 Tar Heels. We have Theo, who has his Run His Race podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Justin has his podcast here. Joel's doing a podcast. When's your podcast? We're waiting for you to to start one up. You got to keep the tradition going here.
I'm not a podcaster. I'm sorry, it's not happening. I'll be a guest. I'll be a guest all day, but I'm not running my own podcast. Heck no, I cannot do it. I've seen and heard how much harder it is than you would imagine, and I just don't want to step into that space. We got enough podcasts already.
Hey, look, we'll have you on anytime we can, bro. All right, we'll bring you on. We'll let you kind of see how it is. It's really not that tough, especially when you have a guy like John running everything behind the scenes. So uh, we'll get you right. But K Will, man, I appreciate you coming on and talking with us a little bit. Um, once again, to everybody listening, everybody watching, we appreciate you. Um, thank you for tuning in and just kind of listening to us catch up and talk about this team going forward into this next game and these next couple games that they've got coming up. Obviously, like John said, they play Kentucky at 5:30 Eastern, 4:30 Central on Saturday. Make sure to tune in and support them, cheer loud. It should be a good game, so we're looking forward to that. So, yeah, I appreciate everybody. Kenny, appreciate you again. And until next time.
Appreciate you having me, brother.